Hey everybody, it's Pastor Tom with your Tuesday Devotional. So last time we talked about the birth of the church, the day of Pentecost, when God poured out His Spirit on all kinds of believers in Jerusalem, and they all spoke in their own unique language, and everybody heard them in their own language. That was just an incredible time. That was the birth of the church. So I'd like to talk a little bit today about what the church is and what the church isn't. So let's look at the New Testament. Many of the letters in the New Testament, they were addressed to specific churches. Now, they were churches that were all part of the larger church body, the larger body of Christ, and they kept in touch with each other. And these churches, these individual churches, they served and they gave to one another. Now, many churches in our community still do that today. Now, Faith has a great partnering relationship with many Bible-believing churches right here in the community. So now going back to the early churches, even though they were partners, they still had their own unique strengths and weaknesses. They had their own distinct shepherding needs. Now that's why Paul followed up with each of his church plants. Each one was different. That's why God called elders to shepherd each distinct flock. Each flock was wonderfully unique, and today's church is no different. Now there's a problem with the church in the Western world. That problem is that some Christians, are unwittingly undermining the strength of their own local church, and therefore they undermine the strength of the greater worldwide church. So what is happening is that some are treating the church kind of like the packaging that spiritual life is delivered by, not treating the church as an essential part of spiritual life itself. Now that probably sounds kind of strange, so let me get more specific. Local churches and their ministries are looked at kind of like an a la carte menu that can be used to create some kind of customizable Christian experience. So people have the freedom of taking what they think that they need from selected ministries of a bunch of different local churches, or whatever ministry feels that their whatever ministry that they feel would feed their spiritual hunger, or going to an online preacher or something, and ignoring the rest of church life. So I believe that there are at least four things that suffer when the church is treated like this. Four things that I can think of anyways. So I'll name each one and then explain. Number one is yourself. Number two, your local church. Number three, the unbelieving community. And most importantly, number four, God's glory. So number one, you're selling yourself short if you treat the church like this. Now, God has given instructions for establishing the structure of the local church for the benefit of its members. So we have elders who are called to shepherd and protect their members. I see it time and time again. Christians who aren't under the shepherding of elders, they find teachers online or teachers through books that kind of tickle their ears, and they end up fixated with some strange, unorthodox, or at least an unbalanced aspect of a particular Christian doctrine. Now, over time, they are drawn more and more away from orthodoxy, and orthodoxy just means right belief. And their faith, and sadly, sometimes even the faith of their family, is shipwrecked because of it. Now, that should scare you. But there is safety within the plurality of elders that God has entrusted to guard sound doctrine in the local church. So for your own good, don't depart from that. Now, number two, your local church will be undermined if you treat it just kind of like an a la carte menu that you can just take what you want and leave the rest. If everybody treats the ministries of the church like that, the church really has no heart. There is no lifeblood, there's no support, and the church needs committed members to support it through financial means, through service in those ministries, and through prayer. Now, it's a shame that some churches don't develop certain facets of their own ministries, because as members, all they have to do is just drive down the road to participate in another church's ministry and who has that particular ministry squared away. So that hampers the growth of their own church, because the church no longer needs to provide avenues of service for their people to put their spiritual gifts to use. So in short, each church needs its members to be invested in doing ministry in their own church, or it fades, or at best, it just kind of treads water. So the community suffers when Christians don't see the local church as part of spiritual life itself. It's real simple. As the importance of the local church fades in the lives of Christians, its light grows dimmer, and outreach into the community invariably suffers. So point 4 is the most important point in this chain reaction, and it's the heaviest domino to fall. The glory of God is diminished. Now, we are a people chosen for God's own possession, to proclaim the virtues of him who called you out of darkness and into his marvelous light. So we are a building that is built on the foundation of the prophets and the apostles, with Jesus himself as the cornerstone. And in him, the whole building grows and is fitted into a holy temple. The local church is the place where God has chosen to shine his glory through us and out into the world. Now that temple is worth investing in and committing to fully. So I'd like to challenge you. If anything I've said has offended you, then I believe that this may be the exact area where you need to take a closer look at what you believe about the place that the local church has in your spiritual life. Take a close look for the good of yourself, for the good of your church, for the good of your community, and most of all, for the glory of God. God bless, and I hope to see you soon.